Alright, what is going on my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. So we're going to have a look at all of the news that they dropped today, of course relating to the Valley Sugo-Fest that they kind of data downloaded and they teased on social media yesterday. The Valley Sugo-Fest, which is going to start tomorrow as of the release of this video. There's a bunch of other stuff, so we're going to go ahead and dive into this one and kind of get through it as fast as we can. So first thing is, there is a new login bonus. They do this every month, of course. Basically, log in every single day, you'll get a ticket, and on day 5 and day 10, you get an actual legend ticket. The tickets from day 1 to 4 and 6 to 9 are just 10% chance to get a red. Otherwise, you'll just get a generic rare recruit character, so nothing too crazy here. I'm not really big fans of this. I much prefer login bonuses where you get a rainbow gem at least every single day. Honestly, it should be a rainbow gem every day, and then day 5 and 10, that's when you can do your, your legend ticket if you wanted to do that. Either way, I just feel like that the 10% tickets, for the most part, are pretty redundant. At least for a more established player, I'm not a big fan of this, but for, I guess, like, new players and, like, low-level casual players, this is, I guess, okay, giving you more opportunities to pick up new characters, but as an established player, I just hate seeing this. It's just kind of whatever. New Grand Party, which is going to be starting on August 1st. Let's have a look and see what the rule set is this season. Let's see, where are we at? So it says, here we go right here. The special rules for this season says, if your leader is Logia, Zoan, quick type, dex type teammates will get special CT speed up level 3, driven and striker teammates get defense level 5, HP, attack, recovery, speed level 5, minus 40% to the requirement, and an additional burst skill. Okay, so you want to use a Logia or a Zoan type. Immediately, the one that comes to mind, obviously, is the 11th anniversary Kizaru. I do think he's actually not a terrible Grand Party leader. In terms of Zoan, there's not really a lot of good Zoan leaders that I can think of off the top of my head. Obviously, you have, like, mythical zones and stuff like that, but, yeah, a bit of a weird one, honestly. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, you obviously want to try and use this because you get so many additional bonuses if you opt to do this. But, obviously, by doing this, you don't get access to the Luffy leaders, you don't get to use, like, Kaido. Even, like, the Dex Kaido leader is very, very good. Even St. J. Garcia Saturn doesn't count for this. Yeah, so it's a little bit weird. So we'll see what ends up being the best one this season. We'll see how things go. But yeah, new Grand Party season starts August 1st. We have the new Assault Rumble as well. I actually don't mind Assault Rumble, honestly. Like, yeah, obviously, to rank really high, you do need the boosters. But even if you don't have the boosters, like, you can still play. You still get, like, a bunch of free gems every single month just by competing in it. So I like Assault Rumble. I think it's here to stay. I don't mind it at all. Now, let's have a look and see what the rule set is this time around, because they do like to change the bosses sometimes. So, of course, if you have any of the new batch characters, we'll talk about some of these new batch rare recruits very shortly because we didn't get a chance to talk about them last night. Let's have a look here. So, there is a buggy boss, which takes additional damage from Dex fighters, and then also damage taken from strength is reduced by 30%. I believe they do this for all the bosses. They take less damage from strength, which makes sense because a lot of the meta, quote-unquote meta, for Assault Rumble has been utilizing really powerful strength teams, obviously with characters like Rumble Legend Kuma. You've got the Film Red Snake Man Luffy with the Gear 5 Snake Man Luffy, whatever it is. That character is really strong, of course, being able to just do so much damage through defense. And then you got characters like the Strength Waifu for those people that have that, as it enables you to confuse the enemies, and confusing, you are allowed to do that, which gives you a lot of bonuses for doing that. So yeah, it is frustrating that they're introducing effects where they're really restricting what teams they want you to use. I mean, just because they have a 30% reduction doesn't necessarily mean you can't use strength. It just means that if you do opt to do it, you're just going to be earning less points than you would normally. But because the fact that it wants you to use Dex and Fighters, my assumption is this will be a quick focused boss. Next, we have the Blackbeard boss. Now, it's going to be interesting to see if this is the exact same Blackbeard boss that has released in the first season. I really hope they just don't keep recycling the same bosses over and over again, but, I believe we had a buggy boss before, and I believe Blackbeard has also been a boss before as well, so we'll see. But for this one, int characters 20% up, and then driven at 20% up. So int and driven makes sense, and then 10% reduction for strength X quick. And then finally there is a Big Mom boss, which I believe is new. We haven't had a Big Mom boss before, and this one gives damage taken from Dex 15% increase, damage taken from int 15% increase as well, and then strength 30% reduction. And then against all bosses, if you run Navy characters, 10% damage bonus. And then also, if you run a Celestial Dragon character, you get a 40% damage bonus. That's huge. That is massive. So if you do have the new Figoland Garling character, with the amount of damage that he can do with his special with all of these bonuses, especially if, you know, you're going up against one of the bosses that are like the Blackbeard boss with int and driven, getting those bonuses, and then all bosses taking more damage from Navy and Celestial Dragon, like Figoland Garling against Blackbeard is going to go crazy, like the amount of damage he's going to be capable of doing. And that's pretty much it. And of course, you should just do it. You get a bunch of gems. It's good stuff, right? Next, we have the announcement of a brand new Pirate King Adventures character. Now, remember, this is going to be the free-to-play character of the month. They will super evolve in the next treasure map, which will be in the middle of August. Do keep in mind that we do have the One Piece Day celebration likely going to be happening soon as well. And those characters will likely be boosted in the treasure map. So there's lots of like things to look forward to. We'll have to wait and see what they have in store for us. But here we have the Lin here. This is starting July 27th, so a few days from now. So this free-to-play Lin, of course, you get her from PKA, and then she super evolves in the treasure map. So what we see now, she will change, obviously, in terms of her ability. So let's go ahead and have a look. So she's int-driven powerhouse. Surprise, surprise on the type and class combination. Captain ability doesn't necessarily matter here. And then the special ability, it removes 6 turns of damage reduction, Rainbow Shield, and then if your crew has a color affinity boost when you launch the special, it extends it by 2 turns and further buffs it by 0.3. It's not bad. Otherwise, you get Dex Int Color Affinity 2.25 for 1 turn. If this character slot is Recovery, G, Semler, or Wano when you launch the special, you get a 2.5 times conditional boost against delayed or defense reduction enemies. So it doesn't do a whole lot, so I am expecting big things in terms of her 5+ that will come out later in August. So hopefully she can apply the condition with her special, maybe having some type of ability to launch her special like multiple times during the quest, so that, you know, you could get the color affinity and then extend it by 2 turns, buff it, something like that. We'll have to wait and see. Not a very amazing free-to-play character, but of course they're going to find ways to make it usable. They typically always do. So I guess the key thing is the utility there. Being able to remove 6 turns of Rainbow Shield, I guess, is kind of cool. The rest of it, not really that important in my opinion. And then she does have the crewmate ability to set bottom row slots into recovery at the start of the quest, which can go hand in hand with her special, as her special mentions that if she has a recovery, G, Semler, or Wano slot, you get the conditional boost. So by setting her as the bottom row in your crew, she can generate her own recovery slot at the start of the quest, which could be kind of useful, I suppose. So that's the free-to-play Big Mom. She does have a Super Tandem ability, and it does trigger with Shiki, Newgate, and Kaido, and it just removes a further 1 turn of Rainbow Shield and gives an int-driven powerhouse Super Tandem boost. So again, nothing too crazy. It's a free-to-play Super Tandem. I guess you can't really complain all that much. I don't really think that she's going to see that much play in Rumble, I guess, but if you are lacking some good characters, if you're a new player jumping into the game, you don't have a lot of good units, this character may be something that you want to look at. But overall, you know, free-to-play character of the month, nothing too wild there. And then we have this one right here, which I thought was kind of interesting. So they're having a campaign where they want you to link your Treasure Cruise account with Bandai Namco ID. Now, I believe this is one of the ways that you can, like, you know, secure your account. So if you want to go and download Treasure Cruise on another device, I believe you can link it with your Bandai Namco ID and then, you know, re-download your account via that. So I think that that is honestly what they want you to do, using data link, as it mentions exactly how to do it here. And by performing this data link, you need to create a Bandai Namco ID. When you link your Treasure Cruise account to the Bandai Namco ID, it mentions that after the period distributed from August 3rd, that you will be able to acquire 15 rainbow gems. So they are really wanting you to go ahead and do it. So it doesn't really take that long to set up. If you guys are playing the One Piece card game, I play the One Piece card game. In order to compete in events, you do need to have a Bandai Namco ID. You link it via the same thing, so it's pretty cool. So make sure you go ahead and do that. 15 free rainbow gems, nothing too crazy there. And then finally, we have the Sugo-Fest. So Sugo-Fest debuting tomorrow it ends August 26th, so we can assume the next end of month batch should be August 26th. We'll have to wait and see. God Valley Sugo-Fest, remember, this is a generic end of month Sugo-Fest. These are not Super Sugo-Fest or anything like that. What this means is that come in September, likely, when they do the reset for September, these characters should be in the generic red ticket pool. So that's pretty cool, right? But at the same time, it means you won't get access to them if you don't pull them, so it is what it is. But these characters will go into the generic pool, which is pretty cool because I do think both of these units are going to be usable in the future. And specifically right now, I think Garp is a very, very good unit. They mentioned that they're both 6-star forms, they don't have unevolved characters, and then the other new rare recruits are Ivankov and Kuma and Ginny. So let's go ahead and actually talk about these units because we didn't get a chance to do it beforehand. So we have Ivankov, which is an int fighter free spirit. The special ability here is very bizarre, so it goes ahead and gives you, sets the enemy's defense to 0 for 1 turn, which I guess could technically work with the free-to-play PKA Lin, giving you that defense down conditional boost. It also changes top and bottom row slots, including block, into tandem, changes middle row slots, including block, into G slots, and then also reduces burn duration by 6 turns and gives you a 1.2 chain boost. And then if you have a Dex type captain, further increase attack by 1.2, up to a max of 6 times, which is crazy. And then if you have an int type captain, you further increase your slot effect boost by 1.2 times, up to 6. And if 2 or more child characters are on the crew, further increase color affinity boosts. So this is supposed to work with both of the new legends, with Garling, who's an orb booster, you have Garp being an attack booster, and then you have Ivankov, which can buff whatever type of effect that character has. So if you end up having Garp and Ivankov, you can use them together and they can boost each other. Otherwise, you could go ahead and use Garling and this character and you'll still get the same benefits, right? So I guess it makes sense, but I just think in a vacuum, outside of this boosted batch, I don't see too many situations where I would want to use this Ivankov in many pieces of content, unless if you are really wanting to have some type of other magnification or modifying the buffs of your characters to, you know, a 1.2 times buff is pretty decent, especially when you get to those higher numbers. Those multiplicative buffs stack much better when you are at those higher levels compared to being at the lower levels. So it could have some use in the future, but it doesn't seem that crazy at face value. You get some further resistance down there, and then also just some further buffs. So nothing too crazy. Support effect, attaching to any child character. And if you're inflicted with burn, you remove it by 1 and get a G slot. Again, nothing too crazy there. And then finally, the secondary rare recruit being Kuma and Ginny. Remember, Kuma actually has a pretty good array of supports you can attach to him, so that's kind of cool. As for the special ability, you can only use it once per quest, so do keep that in mind. But the effect can delay all enemies for 1 turn. Again, the defense reduction from Ivankov and the delay from this guy don't go through immunity, so keep that in mind. You get the 6-turn despair removal. You boost the attack of the next final tap by 40%. That's actually a relatively decent buff from just a special, so 40% buff is kind of nice. And then moving on from that, if you have a Dex Captain, you get minus 6 turns of cooldown to the Dex Captain, which is, it makes sense because Garp, when you use his special, can get 9 turns of cooldown. This plus 6 goes to 15, so Garp can technically get double special launch if you have Kuma and Garp together. Otherwise, if your captain is int, then it reduces your friend captain's special charge time by 6 turns, meaning that if you have Garling and you use friend captain Garp, you could actually kind of work it in that way. So it's kind of fascinating the way they kind of designed this batch. Again, outside of this batch, I don't see too many situations where these rare recruits are actually going to be useful. And then it says, if 2 or more child characters are on the crew, further increase, what was that? Further increase slot effect boost by 1.25. Again, could be kind of good, but having to run 2 or more child characters, this character obviously counts as a child, and then you just need 1 other child character on your crew. It might be difficult to launch, but obviously in this batch, it makes sense. It's just really, really strange. And then you also have the crewmate ability to resist special reverse, and then again, you get some further resistance down there. And then the support effect, unfortunately, doesn't really have anything going for this unit, so that's that. I guess we didn't really mention the fact that they are kind of boosted in Rumble, like they do actually have Rumble abilities. Now, I don't know if I've missed anything here, but the fact that Kuma and Ginny have an effect in their Rumble ability that says that if there is a cross-guild enemy, then you get, like, further buffs. I don't know if there's lore there that I missed between Kuma and Ginny and cross-guild. And the one that also was really bizarre, when you have a look at Ivankov's abilities, he does the same thing, but if the enemy has at least a Blackbeard pirate enemy. Again, I don't know if there's any lore that I missed between young Ivankov and a Blackbeard enemy, but it is what it is. It just seems very, very bizarre that that's the case, so do keep that in mind. Alright, so let's go ahead and finish off this talking about just the Sugo-Fest in general. Obviously, save your gems at least until they reveal what One Piece Day is. If you see the One Piece Day celebration and you're not that excited for it, then you can come back to this Sugo-Fest and potentially try your luck. So that's what I would advise at a bare minimum. But I think generally speaking, you should probably avoid this Sugo-Fest. Now, as for part 1, this is where both new units are available, but they're like slightly lower chance to get each one. And then on part 2 is where you get Garling, higher chance, and then Garp is available on part 3 at a higher chance. Pretty much like a typical end of month Sugo-Fest. On part 1, if you go all the way to the end, you are not guaranteed to get Garling or Garp. But if you go to part 2, you're guaranteed to get Garling. If you go to part 3, you're guaranteed to get Garp. If you go all the way to the 30th pool, which if you go into 30 multis on an end of month batch, that's kind of crazy. In 2025, that's crazy. In terms of the characters that are available, so part 1 actually has a pretty interesting pool of units here. So obviously you have the 2 new units. You got the Alba, which I think is a good unit. I think Usopp and Lilith is also kind of good. You've got the, what's his name? Kinemon and Momonosuke, the strength unit there. The top's pretty good. Again, these are end-of-month legend characters, so you can't hold too much weight with these units because they're just so readily available on, like, a bunch of legend tickets, so I guess you can keep that in mind. You've got the limited pool here and the super limited pool on part 1. If you do end up going deep, I mean, this is what you can expect to get, nothing too crazy. And then on part 2, so if you are specifically looking to get Garling, this is where you would want to pull. In terms of the other units that are available here, I like the fact that Christmas Uta is here. I mean, if you're building a strength team, she's optimal, like literally like one of the best units to use on a strength focused team in Rumble. You've also got Garp, who's another great Rumble character. You've got Mr. One, who doesn't see a ton of play, obviously very good with cross guild, but outside of that probably not too much. You got a couple of decent units here. You got Dex Hiyori, which is also nice to see, but again, nothing too crazy. And then moving on to part 3, this is where Garp is available. You've also got the Mihawk alongside him. You've got the sword characters, the Kujaku, Hibari, and whatever the other characters, Gru, whatever his name is. So that character's pretty good in Rumble if you're running a striker focused team with like Saturn and like Roger Rayleigh Gaban potentially. Memories of Sanji is pretty good if you're running like a side team, specifically building a side team against an int focused team. It's pretty good. Halloween Ace, goated support, of course. Legend Queen is still pretty cool too. But that's pretty much it, of course. And then, of course, you got the new rare recruits. So, overall, that is it. That is the breakdown of the Sugo-Fest and all of these new campaigns. So, again, nothing too crazy, nothing out of the ordinary, aside from the Bandai Namco ID like situation. That's kind of cool, just to get 15 gems because of that. It doesn't really take you much time to do it. And then you have the new rare recruits, you've got the new PKA, you've got the Assault Rumble, the Grand Party, the login bonus. As I said, you should save your Rainbow Gems for One Piece Day just to see what they're doing. If you don't like what they're doing for One Piece Day and you still want to go back and pull on the God Valley Sugo-Fest, you can do that. The banner will be available until August 26th, so you have plenty of time to go back if you want to pull on this banner. Again, it's an end-of-month batch banner. I would advise to skip. That's going to wrap it up for me, though. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.